I am Morgan, 32 years old, and my sister slept with my husband while I was 7 months pregnant and scrubbing his dying mother's floors. Before I tell you about the projector screen that ended their lives as they knew them, tell me where you are watching from in the comments. I want to know who is standing with me today. The air in the chapel smelled like lilies and expensive perfume. It was that thick, cloying scent that sticks to the back of your throat, the kind meant to cover up the smell of death, but it never really works. I stood at the podium, gripping the smooth wood until my knuckles turned white. My feet, swollen from 8 months of pregnancy, throbbed inside my sensible black flats. But I didn't feel the pain. I didn't feel the baby kicking against my ribs, though she had been restless all morning. I felt cold. A deep, glacial cold that started in my chest and radiated out to my fingertips. I looked out at the sea of black suits and dresses. There were about 50 people there. Patricia's friends from her book club, looking frail and teary-eyed. Brett's colleagues from the financial firm, checking their watches, eager to get back to the stock market. My family, my mother, my aunts, my cousins. And then, in the front row, there were the two of them. Brett, my husband of 5 years, sat with his head bowed. He was wearing the charcoal Armani suit I had bought him for our last anniversary. He was pressing a handkerchief to his eyes, his shoulders shaking with what looked like racking sobs. It was a magnificent performance. Truly Oscar-worthy. If I didn't know better, I would have rushed down there to comfort him. Next to him sat Amber. My baby sister. My best friend. She was wearing a black dress that was just a little too tight, the hemline just a little too short for a funeral. She had her hand on Brett's back, rubbing it in slow, soothing circles. She leaned in close to him, whispering something in his ear. To anyone else, it looked like a supportive sister-in-law comforting a grieving man. But from where I stood, I saw the way her fingers lingered on his neck. I saw the way his knee pressed against hers. I saw the glance they exchanged when they thought no one was looking, a quick, hungry look that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with greed. They thought they had won. They thought Patricia was gone, the obstacle removed. They thought I was the stupid, pregnant wife who would inherit the house, sell it, and unwittingly fund their new life together. They were already spending the money in their heads. I knew for a fact Brett had been looking at condos in Miami last night while pretending to be asleep. I looked down at the remote control in my hand. It was a small, black piece of plastic. So insignificant. Yet, it held the power to burn their entire world to the ground. The pastor, a kind old man with a droning voice, nodded at me. "Morgan," he said gently. "We are ready for your tribute." I took a deep breath. The microphone screeched slightly as I adjusted it. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice didn't shake. I was surprised by how steady it sounded. It sounded like someone else's voice, someone stronger, someone dangerous. Patricia was a woman of truth. She hated lies. She hated pretense. She used to tell me that the truth is the only thing that sets you free, even if it hurts. I paused. I let the silence stretch out. I watched Amber shift uncomfortably in her seat. She looked up at me, her eyes widening slightly. Maybe she sensed the change in the atmosphere. Maybe the predator in her recognized the predator in me. We prepared a video, I continued, my eyes locking onto Brett's. He looked up, his face red and blotchy, expecting a montage of his childhood photos and his mother's baking. We thought it would be best to remember Patricia by showing exactly what was happening in her final months. By showing the reality of our family. "That sounds lovely, darling," my mother called out from the second row, clutching a tissue. Poor Mom. She had no idea she was about to lose 2 children today. "It is lovely," I said. "It's illuminating." I raised the remote. My thumb hovered over the play button. Time seemed to slow down. I remembered the last 2 months. I remembered the smell of bleach and sickness. I remembered the nights I spent sleeping on the floor next to Patricia's bed because she was afraid to be alone. I remembered the backaches, the swollen ankles, the crushing exhaustion. And I remembered the laughter. Their laughter. I looked at the large projection screen set up behind the casket. It was currently white, a blank canvas waiting for my masterpiece. Brett gave me a weak, encouraging smile. He mouthed the words, "You can do it." The audacity. The sheer, unadulterated gall of this man. He was cheering me on while plotting to leave me penniless with a newborn. "Patricia deserves the truth," I said into the microphone, my voice dropping an octave. "And so do all of you." I pressed the button. The screen flickered. I didn't start with a photo of Patricia. I didn't start with a photo of the garden she loved. I started with a screenshot. It was massive. 10 feet high. Every pixel was crystal clear. It was a text message thread. The contact name at the top was my soulmate. But the phone number was one that half the people in this room had saved in their contacts. It was Amber's number. The first text, dated 2 months ago, read, "Is the old hag asleep yet? I'm waiting outside. I'm not wearing any underwear." The response from Brett, "She's coughing up blood again. Taking forever. God, I wish she would just hurry up and die so we can be together." Coming out in 5. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. It was a physical sound, like a vacuum sealing shut. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at them. Brett froze. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. It was as if his brain had simply short-circuited. He stared at the screen, his mouth hanging open in a silent scream of horror. Amber let out a strangled noise, a high-pitched yelp. Her hand flew to her mouth, covering a gasp, but it was too late. "What is this?" someone whispered loudly from the back. "Keep watching," I commanded. "We are just getting started. To understand why I did what I did in that church, you have to go back. You have to understand the hell that was my life 8 weeks prior." It was a Tuesday in November. I was 6 months pregnant, and I felt like a whale beached on a shore of sharp rocks. My ankles were the size of grapefruits, and my lower back felt like someone was constantly hammering a chisel into my spine. I had quit my job as a senior risk analyst 3 weeks earlier. It wasn't a choice I wanted to make, but it was a choice I felt I had to make. Brett was too busy at the firm. His career was at a critical juncture. Patricia, his mother, had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and the doctors gave her 3 months, maybe less. There was no money for a full-time nurse. Brett claimed our investments were tied up. So, the duty fell to me. The pregnant daughter-in-law. That Tuesday, the house smelled like boiled cabbage and rubbing alcohol. Patricia had lost control of her bladder again. I was on my hands and knees in the guest room, scrubbing the hardwood floor with bleach wipes. My belly dragged heavy towards the ground, making it hard to breathe. "I'm sorry, Morgan," Patricia whispered from the bed. She was a shadow of the woman she used to be. Her skin was paper-thin and yellowed with jaundice. "I'm such a burden." "Stop it," I said, forcing a smile as I grunted and pulled myself up using the bed frame. "You are not a burden. You're family. And Lily needs her grandma's room clean, doesn't she?" I patted my stomach. Patricia tried to smile, but it looked more like a grimace of pain. "Where is Brett?" "Work," I said automatically. It was the script I read from every day. "He has a big client meeting." "He wanted to be here, Mom, he really did." That was a lie. Brett hadn't been home before 9 p.m. in weeks. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, waddling out of the room. When I opened the front door, Amber was standing there. She looked radiant. She was wearing a tight yoga outfit that showed off her perfect, flat stomach and toned arms. Her hair was a cascading wave of blonde perfection. She held a bouquet of sunflowers and a takeout bag from my favorite Thai place. "Surprise," she chirped, breezing past me into the house. "I brought dinner. And flowers for Patricia. How is our patient?" "She's rough," I said, closing the door and leaning against it for a moment just to take the weight off my feet. "Amber, thank you. You didn't have to." "Don't be silly," she said, heading straight for the kitchen. She started pulling plates out of the cabinets. She knew exactly where everything was. "You're pregnant, Morgan. You need help. That's what sisters are for." I watched her move. She was so full of energy, so alive. I felt gray and heavy in comparison. I felt ugly. "You're an angel," I said, tearing up. "Hormones. I don't know what I'd do without you." Amber walked over and hugged me. She smelled like midnight rose, that expensive perfume I had bought her for her birthday. "I'm here for you, sis. Always. I'd do anything for this family." Looking back, I want to scream at myself. I want to shake that pathetic, grateful woman and tell her to check the knife in her back. Brett came home around 9:30 p.m. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his suit rumpled. "Hey," he grunted, dropping his briefcase in the hallway. "How is she?" "She asked for you," I said softly, handing him a plate of reheated pad thai that Amber had left. She was lucid around dinner time. "I can't deal with it tonight, Morgan," Brett snapped, running a hand through his hair. The market took a dive. My clients are screaming at me. I need a drink. He walked past me, ignoring the food, ignoring my swollen belly, ignoring the fact that I had spent 12 hours wiping bodily fluids. He went straight to the liquor cabinet. "Amber was here," I said, trying to make conversation. "She brought dinner. She even folded the laundry." Brett paused. His back was to me as he poured a scotch. "Oh. That was nice of her. She's been so helpful," I said. "I think she's lonely. She mentioned her boyfriend broke up with her." Brett turned around, taking a long sip. "Yeah? Well, Amber's a good kid. We should be nice to her." He walked over to the couch and sat down, putting his feet up on the coffee table. "My shoulders are killing me." "I can rub them," I offered, moving towards him. "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. "You're tired. Sit down." "Actually, did Amber leave that massage oil she talks about? The lavender stuff?" I frowned. "I think it's in the guest bathroom." "Why?" "Just wondering," he mumbled, closing his eyes. I went upstairs to check on Patricia one last time. When I came back down 20 minutes later, Brett was asleep on the couch. His phone was clutched in his hand, resting on his chest. I covered him with a blanket. I kissed his forehead. I loved him so much it hurt. I thought he was working himself to death for us, for our future, for the medical bills. I waddled to the kitchen to clean up his glass. That's when I saw it. Amber had left a note on the counter next to the flowers. "Keep your chin up, sis. You're doing a great job. Love you." I smiled, pinning it to the fridge. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world to have a sister like her. Whatever hell I was living in with Patricia's illness, I thought I wasn't alone. But I was. I was worse than alone. I was sleeping in a house with 2 wolves, and I was the cracks in my reality didn't appear with a bang. They appeared with a scent. 2 weeks later, the situation with Patricia had deteriorated. She needed morphine every 4 hours. I was a zombie. I hadn't washed my hair in 3 days, and I was wearing one of Brett's old t-shirts because none of my maternity clothes felt comfortable anymore. It was a Thursday morning. Brett had left early, claiming an emergency breakfast meeting with a high-net-worth individual from out of town. I was doing laundry. The mountain of clothes never seemed to end. sheets, towels, Brett's suits. We couldn't afford the dry cleaner as often as he liked because Patricia's medication costs were skyrocketing, and our insurance was fighting us on every claim. So, I was hand-steaming his suits. I picked up his navy blue blazer, the one he had worn yesterday. He had come home late again, around midnight. He said the client dinner ran long. He had stumbled into bed, smelling of wine and cigars, and passed out immediately. As I brushed the lint off the collar, a smell hit me. It wasn't cigars. It wasn't the stale smell of a steakhouse. It was floral. Sweet. Musky. I froze, holding the jacket to my nose. I inhaled deeply. Midnight rose. My heart skipped a beat. A cold shiver ran down my spine, unrelated to the drafty laundry room. Don't be crazy, Morgan, I told myself. Amber wears that perfume. She was here yesterday morning. She probably hugged him goodbye. But Amber hadn't been here yesterday morning. She had texted me saying she had a double shift at the yoga studio. I shook my head. Maybe he hugged her days ago and the scent lingered? High-end perfume does that. Or maybe the client was a woman who wore the same scent? It's a popular brand. I tried to dismiss it. I tried to go back to being the trusting, exhausted wife. I reached into the pockets of the blazer to empty them before steaming. I pulled out a crumpled gum wrapper, a loose mint, and a small, folded piece of paper. I unfolded it. It was a receipt. My hands started to tremble. The paper rattled in the quiet room. Riverside Inn. I knew the Riverside Inn. It was a boutique hotel downtown, about 20 minutes from his office. It was expensive. Romantic. The kind of place you go for anniversaries, not business meetings. I looked at the date. Yesterday. Wednesday, November 14th. Check-in, 2 p.m. Check-out, 6:30 p.m. A day rate. My breath hitched in my throat. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.? Yesterday afternoon, at 3 p.m., I had called Brett in a panic because Patricia was coughing up blood. He hadn't answered. He texted me an hour later, in a deposition. Can't talk. Handle it. I had handled it. I had cleaned up the blood. I had called the hospice nurse. I had cried alone in the bathroom. While I was doing that, he was at a hotel. I stared at the receipt. Room 304. Maybe it was for a client? Maybe the client needed a place to freshen up? I looked further down the receipt. Room service, champagne bottle. Strawberries. Club sandwich. Champagne. Who orders champagne for a business meeting in a hotel room at 2 in the afternoon? I sat down on the pile of dirty laundry. The smell of midnight rose on the jacket seemed to grow stronger, suffocating me. It was choking me. I pulled out my phone. My fingers were shaking so badly I mistyped my password twice. I opened my text thread with Amber. Me, hey, crazy day yesterday? You didn't come by. Amber, yesterday, 8 p.m. OMG yes. So busy. Back-to-back classes. I'm dead on my feet. Going to sleep early. Love you. So busy. I looked at the receipt again. 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. I opened my text thread with Brett. Me, yesterday, 3:15 p.m. Mom is bleeding. I'm scared. Please call. Brett, yesterday, 4:02 p.m. in a deposition. Can't talk. Handle it. A deposition. Financial advisors don't do depositions. Lawyers do. Sometimes they are involved, sure, but, with champagne? The denial was a powerful drug, but it was wearing off fast. The reality was setting in, sharp and jagged. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen, clutching the receipt like it was a lifeline. I needed to verify this. I needed to be sure. I was a risk analyst. I didn't work on hunches. I worked on data. I logged into our bank account on the family iPad. I scrolled through the transactions. Nothing for the Riverside Inn. Smart, I thought bitterly. He paid cash. But then I saw it. An ATM withdrawal. $300. Taken out at 1:30 p.m. yesterday from a bodega 2 blocks from the Riverside Inn. I scrolled back. October 30th, ATM withdrawal. $300. Near the Riverside Inn. October 15th, ATM withdrawal. $300. Near the Riverside Inn. 3 times in 6 weeks. And then I checked the dates against my texts with Amber. October 30th, Amber, teaching a private workshop all afternoon. October 15th, Amber, going to the dentist, then crashing. Migraine. The pattern was staring me in the face. It was a statistical anomaly that was impossible to ignore. My husband wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating on me with my sister. I felt bile rise in my throat. I ran to the kitchen sink and dry heaved. There was nothing in my stomach but tea and toast, but my body was trying to expel the poison of the betrayal. I looked up at my reflection in the window above the sink. I looked gray. Bags under my eyes. Hair messy. A faded t-shirt stretched over my huge belly. And I thought of Amber. Perfect, toned, smelling of roses, drinking champagne in a hotel room while I wiped blood off his mother's chin. The grief I felt for my marriage vanished in that instant. It was replaced by something hotter. Something harder. Rage. Pure, molten rage. But I couldn't scream. I couldn't confront him yet. If I confronted him now, he would lie. He would say it was for a client. He would say Amber was just helping him pick out a gift. He would gaslight me until I believed I was the crazy, hormonal pregnant woman. No. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. I needed to see it. I wiped my mouth. I took a picture of the receipt with my phone. Then, I carefully folded it back up and put it exactly where I found it in his jacket pocket. I finished steaming the suit. I hung it up in his closet. When he came home that night, I kissed him on the cheek. I asked him how his day was. I watched him lie to my face without blinking. Exhausting, he said, loosening his tie. But I think I landed the account. That's great, honey, I said. You work so hard for us. I watched him preen. He believed me. He thought I was stupid. That was his first mistake. The next morning, the house was quiet. Patricia was in a morphine-induced sleep. Brett was in the shower. He had left his iPad on the kitchen counter. Usually, Brett was glued to his phone. He took it to the bathroom. He slept with it under his pillow. But the iPad? He used that for reading the news and checking stocks. He was careless with it. I knew his passcode. It was his birthday. 0812, he wasn't imaginative. I waited until I heard the water running upstairs. I picked up the iPad. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might bruise the baby. I typed in 0-8-1-2. It unlocked. I went straight to photos. Nothing in the main roll. Just pictures of house listings, some graphs, a few pictures of us from last Christmas, which felt like a lifetime ago. I went to the recently deleted folder. Empty. He was careful. But Brett wasn't tech-savvy. He didn't understand how the Apple ecosystem worked. He didn't understand that if you sync devices, sometimes things get stuck in the cloud. I went to Settings. I clicked on his Apple ID. iCloud Photos, on. Shared Albums, on. I opened the Messages app. It was clean. Too clean. He was deleting threads. But then I saw it. A little cloud icon next to the unknown senders filter. He had filter unknown senders on, but he had archived a thread. I clicked on edit, then show recently deleted. There it was. A thread with my soulmate. He had deleted it last night, but Apple keeps messages for 30 days unless you permanently remove them. He had just hit delete once. I pressed recover. The thread popped back into the inbox. I tapped it. I had to sit down on the bar stool because my knees gave out. Hundreds of messages. Going back 3 months. My soulmate, can't wait to see you. I bought that red lingerie you like. Brett, wear it. And nothing else. God, I need a break from the whale. The whale. I looked down at my stomach. My daughter was in there. His daughter. And he called me a whale. I scrolled up. Brett, she's crying again. My back hurts, my feet hurt. It's so unsexy. I miss your body. My soulmate, don't worry baby. Soon it will be just us. Did you talk to the lawyer about the house? Brett, working on it. Mom is fading fast. Once she kicks the bucket, we sell the house, dump the whale, and move to Miami. I covered my mouth to stop a scream from escaping. Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging. They weren't just sleeping together. They were planning to discard me. They were waiting for his mother, my second mother, to die so they could cash out. And then, the photos. I scrolled to the media gallery in the text thread. Selfies of them in bed. In my bed. In our guest room bed while I was out grocery shopping. Pictures of them at dinner. Pictures of them at the Riverside Inn. And one video. I shouldn't have clicked it. But I did. It was Amber. She was holding a glass of champagne, sitting in a bubble bath in the hotel room. To us, she purred at the camera. And to being free of the drag. The drag. That was me. I felt a coldness settle over me that was absolute. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was hatred. Pure, crystallized hatred. I heard the water stop upstairs. Panic surged through me. I had maybe 3 minutes before he came down. I didn't just read. I acted. I took out my own phone. I started snapping photos of the iPad screen. I took pictures of the nasty texts. I took pictures of the timestamps. I took pictures of the photos of them together. I scrolled back to the most damning text of all. Brett, October 22nd. I checked the trust fund documents. If we can get Mom to sign the power of attorney before she goes completely under, I can redirect the main beneficiary to the family trust I set up last week. Morgan won't see a dime. My soulmate, genius. Do it. She's too busy wiping asses to notice. This wasn't just adultery. This was fraud. This was theft. My hands were flying. Click. 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 I heard footsteps on the stairs. I quickly deleted the thread again. I closed the apps. I wiped the screen with the hem of my shirt to remove my fingerprints. I put the iPad back exactly where it was. I turned to the sink and started washing a mug, my back to the door. Morning, Brett said, walking into the kitchen. He smelled like soap and mint. Coffee ready? Just brewing, I said. My voice was steady. How was it steady? Sleep okay? Like a baby, he said, grabbing the iPad. He unlocked it. Checked the news. He didn't notice a thing. I have a long day today, he said. Might be late. Don't wait up. Okay, I said, turning to face him. I forced a smile. It felt like the skin on my face was cracking. I'll take care of Mom. you go, make that money. He kissed my cheek. I flinched internally, imagining Amber's lips on him. You're the best, he said patronizingly. Make sure Mom eats something. I will, I said. He left. The door clicked shut. I collapsed onto the floor. I curled into a ball around my belly and I screamed. I screamed silently, my mouth wide open, no sound coming out, just the agony of a world shattering. My sister. My husband. They wanted a war? They had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't just a whale. I was a risk analyst. I spent 10 years finding holes in corporate strategies and destroying bad investments. And Brett Harris was about to become the worst investment of his life. I gave myself 1 hour to cry. I set a timer on the microwave. I sobbed, I punched a pillow, I cursed God. When the timer beeped, I washed my face with ice-cold water. I put on concealer to hide the redness. I put on my armor, a clean maternity blouse and actual pants. I needed a team. I called the only person I knew who could help. Margaret, I said when the voice on the other end answered. Margaret was a divorce attorney I had met at a networking event years ago. She was known as the shark in our city. I need an emergency consult. Today. In 1 hour. Morgan? She sounded surprised. Is everything okay? No, I said. I have evidence of adultery and conspiracy to commit fraud. And I have a dying mother-in-law. I have an opening at noon, she said, her voice shifting instantly from friendly to professional. Bring everything. I called a lift. I couldn't drive. My hands were shaking too much. I told the hospice nurse who came at 11 a.m. that I had an OBGYN appointment. Margaret's office was glass and steel. It looked like a fortress. I laid the phone on her desk. I showed her the photos of the texts. Margaret watched silently. She adjusted her glasses. She didn't gasp. She didn't look pitying. She looked angry. This is. She paused, scrolling through the text where they called me a whale. This is vile. I want a divorce, I said. I want him out of the house. Today. Margaret shook her head. No. What? I blinked. Did you see the texts? They are stealing from his mother. Exactly, Margaret said, leaning forward. If you file for divorce today, based on adultery, in this state, it's a no-fault state. You split assets 50-50ths. You get child support, sure. But he gets half the house. He gets half the savings. But he's cheating. Doesn't matter for the money, Margaret said ruthlessly. However, she tapped the picture of the text about the power of attorney. This matters. Attempted fraud. Elder abuse. Financial manipulation. So what do I do? You wait, Margaret said. We need him to actually commit the act. Or attempt it in a way that is legally provable. Right now, this is just a text message. He could claim it was a joke. A bad taste joke, but a joke. You want me to live with him? I whispered. Knowing he's sleeping with my sister? I want you to destroy him, Margaret said, her eyes cold and hard. I want you to get full custody. I want you to get the house. I want you to get 100% of the assets. To do that, we need to catch him trying to steal your mother-in-law's estate. We need constructive trust arguments. We need proof of dissipation of marital assets on the mistress. She slid a business card across the desk. Leonard Vance. Private investigator. He's expensive, but he's the best. Get him to install cameras. Audio and video. In the living room. In Patricia's room. In his car. Is that legal? In your own home? Absolutely. It's a security system for your dying mother, Margaret winked. You're just a concerned caregiver. I took the card. And then? And then, you let him think he's winning. You play the dumb wife. You let Amber come over. You let them text. You let them dig their own grave. And when they try to get Patricia to sign those papers, we catch them. I left that office with a mission. The crying was over. The game had begun. I hired Leonard that afternoon. He was a gruff ex-cop with a gray mustache. He came over while Brett was at work, disguised as a cable repairman. He installed a pinhole camera in the smoke detector in the living room. Another one in the bookshelf in Patricia's room. And he put a GPS tracker on Brett's car. This captures audio too, Leonard grunted, syncing the feed to a secure app on my phone. Cloud storage. Real-time access. He won't know a thing. That night, I cooked Brett's favorite dinner. Roast chicken. He came home late, of course. Smells good, he said, pecking me on the cheek. I didn't flinch this time. I imagined I was an actress in a spy movie. How was work? I asked. Brutal, he sighed. But I think the bonus this year is going to be huge. That's wonderful, I said. We can really use it for the baby's nursery. Yeah, he said, looking away. Totally. I watched him eat. I watched him chew. And I thought about how much satisfaction I was going to get when I ripped the food out of his mouth. 3 days later, the trap snapped shut. I was in the kitchen, pretending to make tea. I had my earbuds in, connected to the app on my phone, listening to the feed from the living room. Amber had come over. She was wearing a somber outfit, gray sweater, jeans. Brett had come home for lunch, a rarity. They were in the living room. Is she upstairs? Amber whispered. Yeah, she's taking a nap, Brett replied. She's exhausted. Being pregnant makes her sleep like the dead. Did you bring the papers? Right here. I heard the rustle of paper. Power of attorney. And the revised deed transfer. If we get Mom to sign this, the house transfers to me before probate. It bypasses the will. Morgan gets nothing. But is she lucid enough to sign? Amber asked. Doesn't matter, Brett scoffed. She's so doped up she doesn't know what year it is. I'll just tell her it's for the insurance. Or I'll guide her hand. The notary is a buddy of mine from college, Dave. He'll stamp it later, backdate it to when she was healthy. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just opportunism. This was a felony. Let's do it now, Amber said. Before the whale wakes up. I watched on the screen as they stood up. They were heading for the stairs. I had to stop them. But I couldn't just yell. I needed to be smarter. I waited until they were halfway up the stairs. Then, I loudly dropped a ceramic mug in the sink. Crash. I heard them freeze on the stairs. Honey? You awake? I called out, my voice groggy, like I had just woken up. I think I broke a glass. I heard Brett curse under his breath. Damn it. Coming, babe, he yelled down, his voice switching to that fake, caring tone. He ran down the stairs, stuffing the papers into his jacket pocket. Amber followed, looking annoyed. Are you okay? Brett asked, rushing into the kitchen. I'm so clumsy, I said, pointing to the shattered mug. My hands are just so swollen. Oh, hi Amber. I didn't know you were here. Just stopped by to see. Patricia, Amber lied smoothly. That's so sweet, I said. Actually, Brett, since you're home. Mom has been asking for her lawyer. Brett froze. Her lawyer? Why? She wants to review her will, I said innocently. She mentioned something about feeling guilty she didn't leave enough to charity. Panic flashed in Brett's eyes. Charity? She's not thinking clearly. We shouldn't bother the lawyer with her delusions. I don't know, I said, sweeping up the shards. She seemed pretty insistent. I was going to call Mr. Henderson tomorrow. No. Brett said, too loud. No, don't do that. I'll handle it. I handle the finances, Morgan. You just focus on the baby. Okay, I said submissively. You're right. You handle everything so well. They left an hour later, frustrated and empty-handed. But I knew they would try again. I had bought myself time, but not much. I went upstairs to Patricia's room. She was awake. Her eyes were sunken, but there was a spark in them. Morgan, she rasped. I sat on the edge of the bed. I held her frail hand. Mom, I whispered. I have to tell you something. And it's going to break your heart. But I need your help to save this family. I told her. I told her everything. I showed her the photos. I played her the audio recording of her son calling her an old hag and planning to steal her house. I watched a mother's heartbreak in real time. Tears rolled down her hollow cheeks. She didn't scream. She just squeezed my hand with a surprising strength. My boy, she whispered. My foolish, cruel boy. She looked at me. He chose her? Her? Yes, I said. Patricia closed her eyes. She took a ragged breath. When she opened them again, the sadness was gone. Replaced by the same steel that I had found in myself. Call Mr. Henderson, she said. Now. Not tomorrow. Now. Brett will be furious, I said. Let him be, Patricia hissed. This is my house. This is my legacy. And he is not getting a single penny of it. That afternoon, while Brett was at work, probably at the Riverside Inn, Mr. Henderson came over. We recorded the session on video to prove she was of sound mind. She revoked the power of attorney. She created a new will. She put everything, the house, the savings, the stocks, into a trust for Lily, with me as the sole trustee. And she wrote a letter. A letter to be read at the reading of the will. I want one more thing, Patricia said, her voice weak but fierce. Don't tell him. Not until I'm gone. Let him think he won. Let him show his true face. I promise, I said. We sealed the envelope. 2 days later, Patricia slipped into a coma. 3 days after that, she passed away. And now, here we were. The funeral. The projector. The trap was set. The bait was taken. I looked at the frozen image on the screen, the text message where they wished for her death. Next slide, I said into the microphone. The silence in the chapel didn't last. It shattered like a dropped mirror. This is a lie. Brett's voice boomed, cracking at the edges. He scrambled out of the pew, his face a mask of panicked crimson. He pointed a shaking finger at me, then at the screen. She's crazy. My wife is hormonal. She's been having delusions since the pregnancy started. Turn that off. Someone turn that off. He lunged toward the projector, desperate to kill the image of his own cruelty looming 10 feet tall behind his mother's coffin. But he didn't make it. 2 large men in dark suits, associates of Leonard, my private investigator, stepped out from the shadows of the side aisles. They didn't touch him, they just blocked his path, crossing their arms like stone gargoyles. Sit down, Mr. Harris, one of them rumbled. This is a funeral. Amber shrieked, standing up now. She looked around the room, her eyes wide and wet with fake tears, trying to rally sympathy. How can you do this, Morgan? To Mom? To Brett? You're desecrating her memory with Photoshop. Photoshop? I repeated into the microphone. My voice was ice. Is that what we're calling it? I looked at my mother, Sarah, in the second row. She was pale, her hand clutching her chest, looking back and forth between her two daughters. "Mom," Amber cried out, reaching for her. "Tell her to stop. She's lost her mind." My mother looked at me. For a second, I saw doubt. I saw the fear that maybe her eldest daughter had snapped under the pressure of caregiving. "I haven't lost my mind, Mom," I said softly, addressing her directly. "I found it. And I found this." I clicked the remote again. Slide 2. The video. The audio boomed through the church's sound system. The acoustics were perfect. Every drop of water, every clink of glass was amplified. On the screen, Amber sat in the hotel bathtub, bubbles up to her chest, holding that flute of champagne. The timestamp in the corner read, November 14th, 2:32 p.m. To us, Amber's voice purred from the speakers, echoing off the stained glass windows. "And to being free of the drag." Then, Brett's voice, from behind the camera. "Turn around, babe. Let me see that back. God, no stretch marks." Finally, a real woman. The gasp in the room this time was different. It wasn't shock. It was disgust. Pure, unadulterated revulsion. I saw my mother flinch as if she'd been slapped. She recognized the bathroom. She recognized the voice. And she recognized the date. November 14th was the day she had come over to help me change Patricia's sheets because I was too weak to lift her. "That was the day Mom was bleeding out," I said to the crowd. While I was cleaning blood off the carpet, my husband was filming my sister in a bathtub at the Riverside Inn. Room 304. Amber slumped back into the pew, burying her face in her hands. The supportive sister act was gone. Now, she was just the other woman, exposed in high definition. Brett, however, wasn't done. He was cornered, and cornered rats bite. "It's fake," he screamed, turning to his boss, Mr. Sterling, who was sitting in the third row looking like he wanted to vanish. "Sir, it's a deep fake. You know AI can do this now. She's trying to ruin my reputation." "A deep fake?" I asked. "Is the bank transfer a deep fake too, Brett?" I clicked the remote. Slide 3. A spreadsheet. Simple. Brutal. Chase Bank savings account ending in 4490. Account holder, Patricia Harris. Authorized user, Brett Harris. Transaction, $15,000. Recipient, Tiffany and Company. Transaction, $5,000. Recipient, Riverside Inn. Transaction, $20,000. Recipient, cash withdrawal. Patricia's life savings, I narrated. Money she saved for her chemotherapy. Money she saved for her hospice care. Gone. Spent on diamond earrings for Amber. Spent on a suite at the Riverside. Spent on, well, I assume the cash was for your gambling debts, Brett. Or maybe just to have walking around money while you waited for her to die. Mr. Sterling stood up. He was a formidable man, the CEO of the investment firm Brett worked for. He adjusted his tie, walked out of the pew, and looked Brett dead in the eye. "You're fired, Brett," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but in the silent church, it sounded like a gunshot. "Don't bother coming to clean out your desk. Security will mail you a box." "Sir, wait, please," Brett stammered, reaching out. Mr. Sterling stepped back as if Brett were contagious. "You stole from a dying woman? A client? You're done in this town. You're done on Wall Street." He turned and walked out of the church. The dominoes were falling. But I had one last tile to push. The heaviest one. "You can claim the texts are fake," I said, looking down at Brett, who was now trembling, sweat pouring down his face. "You can claim the video is AI. You can even claim the bank statements are a clerical error. But there is one witness you cannot discredit. I looked at the coffin. The deceased. Brett's head snapped up. What? You didn't think she knew, I said. You thought she was too drugged up. Too weak. You thought she was just a body waiting to be discarded. I clicked the remote. Slide 4. The screen filled with the face of Patricia Harris. It was taken 3 days before she died. She was sitting up in bed, propped by pillows. She looked frail, skeletal even, but her eyes were sharp. Clear. Fierce. I had filmed this with Mr. Henderson, her lawyer, standing right next to me. On the screen, Patricia looked directly into the camera lens. Directly at Brett. Brett, the video, Patricia said. Her voice was raspy, every word a struggle, but she forced them out. My son. In the church, Brett covered his mouth. He started to shake his head, a low no escaping his lips. I know, Patricia said. I heard you. I heard you and Amber in the hallway. I heard you call me an old hag. I heard you ask how long it would take for me to die. A sob broke from someone in the back row. I loved you, Patricia continued, a tear tracking through the map of wrinkles on her face. I loved you more than my own life. But I will not let you destroy Morgan. And I will not let you steal from my granddaughter. She held up a document in the video. Her hand shook, but she held it high. This is my new will, she said. I am signing it today. I am of sound mind. I am leaving everything, my house, my remaining accounts, my jewelry, to Morgan Harris and my granddaughter, Lily. You, Brett, you get nothing. Not because I don't love you. But because you don't love me. The video ended. The screen went black. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. It was the silence of judgment. Brett collapsed. He didn't faint, his legs just gave out. He fell back into the pew, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor, head in his hands. Amber was staring at the blank screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. She looked at Brett, then at me, then at our mother. Mom, Amber whispered. Mom, please. It's a misunderstanding. My mother, Sarah, stood up slowly. She walked over to the end of the pew where Amber was sitting. Amber reached out a hand. Mom, help me. Morgan is lying. My mother didn't take her hand. She raised her own hand and, with a force I didn't know she possessed, slapped Amber across the face. The sound cracked through the church like a whip. Don't you dare, my mother hissed, her voice trembling with a rage that matched my own. Don't you dare speak to me? You slept with your sister's husband? While she was carrying your niece? While she was wiping a dying woman's face? But Mom, I have no daughter named Amber, my mother said. Not anymore. She turned her back on her. She walked up the aisle to the podium, climbed the steps, and stood next to me. She put her arm around my waist, supporting me. I think, I said into the microphone that concludes the service. The police are waiting outside for the reception. Police? Brett looked up from the floor. Police? Oh, did I forget to mention? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Elder abuse is a felony. Grand larceny is a felony. Fraud is a felony. Margaret? I nodded to the back of the room. My lawyer, Margaret, stood up. Next to her were 2 uniformed officers. They walked down the center aisle. The sound of their heavy boots was the only thing audible over Brett's pathetic whimpering. Brett Harris, the officer said, pulling Brett up from the floor by his armpit. You are under arrest for the embezzlement of funds from the estate of Patricia Harris, and for elder abuse. They spun him around. The click of the handcuffs was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Better than any symphony. Better than any applause. Amber Wells, the other officer said, turning to my sister. Amber shrank back. Me? I didn't do anything. We were just in love. We have video evidence of you conspiring to forge a signature on a legal document, the officer said impassively. And we have evidence of you accepting stolen funds. You're coming with us for questioning. No. Amber screamed as they grabbed her wrists. Morgan. Morgan, tell them. I'm your sister. You can't let them take me to jail. I'm pregnant. The room stopped. I froze. What? I asked. Amber looked at me, desperation wild in her eyes. I'm pregnant, Morgan. With Brett's baby. You can't send a pregnant woman to jail. I looked at her stomach. Flat. Perfect. Then I looked at mine. Round. Heavy. Full of a child that would never know her father, thanks to them. I felt a moment of pity. Just a flicker. But then I remembered the text message, I wish she would just hurry up and die. I was pregnant too, Amber, I said quietly. And you didn't care. You wanted to throw me and my baby on the street. I looked at the officer. Get them out of my sight. The reception was cancelled. Nobody had an appetite for egg salad sandwiches after that. I went back to the house. My house. Technically, it was still in probate, but with the new will, I was the executor and sole beneficiary. The locks had already been changed. Leonard, my PI, was efficient like that. I walked into the quiet hallway. It still smelled like funeral lilies, but underneath that, there was the faint scent of bleach from where I had cleaned Patricia's room. I didn't rest. I couldn't. Adrenaline was still coursing through my veins, masking the exhaustion. I went upstairs to the master bedroom. Our bedroom. I opened the closet. I grabbed Brett's suits. The Armani, the Hugo Boss, the ones I had steamed just days ago while he was cheating on me. I threw them on the floor. I grabbed his shoes. His expensive watches. His golf clubs. I didn't pack them nicely. I wasn't that generous. I dragged everything downstairs and dumped it on the front lawn. It was threatening to rain, gray clouds swirling above. Good. Let it rain on his silk ties. Let it rain on his Italian leather. I went back inside and walked to the guest room, the room Amber had used whenever she stayed over to help. I found a bag of her things in the closet. Some yoga clothes. A bottle of Midnight Rose. I walked to the front door and hurled the perfume bottle onto the driveway. It shattered. The scent exploded into the air, sickeningly sweet. The smell of betrayal. I sat on the front porch step and watched the pile of their belongings. A car pulled up. It wasn't the police. It was a taxi. Amber got out. She had been released. Of course. She was an accessory, not the primary suspect, and she probably posted bail or was released on her own recognizance pending the investigation. She looked terrible. Her mascara was running down her face. Her dress was rumpled. She walked up the driveway, spotting her bag on the lawn. She stopped. Morgan, she said. Her voice was small. Trembling. I didn't stand up. I just looked at her. I have nowhere to go, she said. Mom won't answer her phone. Dad. Dad told me to never call him again. Not my problem, I said. I'm your sister, she sobbed. We shared a room. We shared everything. Yeah, I said bitterly. We did. Including my husband. Apparently, you thought sharing meant taking. She stepped closer. He manipulated me, Morgan. You know how he is. He's charming. He told me you guys were unhappy. He told me you were essentially roommates. He told me. He told you I was a whale. I cut her off. I read the texts, Amber. You weren't a victim. You were a participant. You mocked me. You laughed at me. She wiped her nose. I was jealous. Okay? I was jealous. You had the perfect life. The house, the rich husband, the career. I was just the yoga instructor sister who couldn't keep a boyfriend. I wanted what you had. Well, I gestured to the pile of wet clothes on the lawn. You got him. You got Brett. You can have his debt, you can have his criminal record, and you can have his cheap, lying heart. Take him. I don't have anywhere to sleep tonight, she whispered. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket. It was the restraining order Margaret had filed this morning. This says you can't be within 500 feet of me or this property, I said. If you are not off my lawn in 2 minutes, I call the cops back. And this time, you'll violate bail conditions. You wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I held my thumb over the call button. I looked her dead in the eye. Try me. She saw it then. The change in me. The sister she knew, the soft, forgiving Morgan, was gone. She had died in that funeral home along with Patricia. Amber grabbed her bag. She didn't look back. She ran down the driveway, flagging down the taxi that was about to pull away. I watched her go. Then, the rain started. It poured down, soaking Brett's suits, ruining his leather shoes. I sat on the porch, getting wet, and for the first time in months, I felt clean. I gave birth 3 weeks later. It wasn't the birth I had planned. I had planned for Brett to be holding my hand. I had planned for Amber to be in the waiting room with flowers. Instead, it was just me and my mother. I went into labor at 2 a.m. My mom drove me to the hospital. The pain was excruciating, ripping me apart, but I welcomed it. It was honest pain. It was productive pain. It wasn't the pointless, gnawing pain of betrayal. You're doing great, sweetie, my mom soothed, wiping sweat from my forehead. Breathe. I can't, I gasped. It hurts. You are strong, she said fiercely. Look at what you've survived. This is nothing compared to that. You moved mountains, Morgan. You can push out a baby. She was right. I channeled every ounce of rage, every ounce of hurt, into those pushes. Lily was born at 6:42 a.m. She screamed a loud, lusty cry that announced she was here and she wasn't going to be ignored. The doctor placed her on my chest. She was warm and slippery and heavy. She opened her eyes. They were blue. Brett's blue. For a second, my heart stopped. I was terrified I would look at her and see him. See the liar. See the cheat. But then she blinked, and her little hand reached out and grasped my finger. She didn't look like Brett. She looked like herself. She looked like hope. She's perfect, my mom whispered, crying. She's mine, I corrected. She's all mine. Brett wasn't there. He was currently out on bail, staying at a cheap motel on the highway because all his assets were frozen pending the investigation. He had petitioned the court for visitation, but Margaret had blocked it immediately, citing the danger to the child given his unstable behavior and the pending felony charges. The nurse came in later that morning. Ms. Wells? Ms. Wells, I said firmly. I had already filed the name change paperwork. There is a man in the lobby, the nurse said, looking uncomfortable. He says he's the father. He has flowers. I tightened my hold on Lily. Is his name Brett Harris? Yes. I have a protective order, I said. And full temporary custody. If he sets foot on this floor, security needs to remove him. Understood, the nurse said, nodding. He looks pretty rough, to be honest. He's causing a bit of a scene. Let him, I said. Let him scream. I don't hear it anymore. I looked out the window of the hospital room. I imagined him down there, holding cheap gas station flowers, realizing that the doors were locked. Realizing that the family he threw away was on the other side of a wall he could never climb again. I looked down at Lily. "We don't need him," I whispered to her. "We have everything we need." The wheels of justice turn slow, but they grind exceedingly fine. Over the next year, I watched from a distance as Brett and Amber's lives disintegrated. I didn't have to do anything else. I had lit the match, gravity did the rest. Brett took a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming. The video of Patricia, the bank records, the testimony of his own boss. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of elder abuse and 1 count of wire fraud. He was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. I went to the sentencing. I sat in the back row. I wanted to see it. He looked older. His hair was thinning. He had lost weight. When the judge read the sentence, he didn't cry. He just looked tired. Defeated. He looked back once, scanning the room. His eyes locked with mine. He mouthed the word, "Sorry." I didn't react. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I just looked at him like he was a stranger I passed on the street. Because he was. The man I loved was a fiction. This man in the orange jumpsuit was the reality. As for Amber, her pregnancy was real. But she miscarried 2 months after the funeral. The stress, she claimed. I sent flowers. No card. Just lilies. It was the only kindness I had left in me. She tried to reach out after that. She sent letters. Long, rambling letters blaming Brett, blaming our childhood, blaming the universe. She never took responsibility. It was always things happened to her, never she did things. I burned them. She moved to California 6 months later. Rumor had it she was working as a waitress in a dive bar, trying to find a rich producer to save her. Good luck with that. The internet is forever. A simple Google search of Amber Wells' funeral scandal brought up the local news articles about the funeral slideshow revenge. She was famous, just not in the way she wanted. I got the house. The judge awarded me full ownership of the marital home as part of the divorce settlement, citing Brett's dissipation of assets and the emotional distress he caused. I renovated it. I couldn't live in the ghost of my marriage. I tore out the carpets. I painted the walls a soft sage green. I turned the guest room, the room where they had betrayed me, into a playroom for Lily. I filled it with bright colors, stuffed animals, and laughter. I reclaimed the space. The money from Patricia's estate was substantial. I didn't spend it on luxury cars or vacations. I invested it. I started a foundation in Patricia's name, the Patricia Harris Fund for Elder Justice. We provided legal aid to seniors who were being financially exploited by family members. It was my way of keeping her memory alive. My way of fighting back against all the Bretts of the world. It's been 2 years now. I am sitting on my back porch. The sun is setting, painting the sky in strokes of orange and violet. Lily is playing in the grass with our golden retriever, Buster. She is 2 years old, running on sturdy little legs, laughing that belly laugh that heals my soul. I have a glass of wine in my hand. Not to drown sorrows, but to celebrate. I just got a promotion. Director of Risk Management. I run my own department now. I walk into boardrooms with my head held high, and when men try to interrupt me, I shut them down with a single look. I'm dating again. His name is David. He's a pediatrician. He's kind. He's boring in the best possible way. He brings me soup when I'm sick, and he plays tea party with Lily. I don't know if I'll ever marry again. The trust is fragile. It's a muscle that was severed and is slowly knitting back together, leaving a thick scar. But that scar is my strength. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the girl I was. The girl who scrubbed floors on her hands and knees while her husband cheated. The girl who thought she was weak. The girl who thought she needed to be saved. I wish I could go back and hug her. I wish I could tell her, "You are a dragon sleeping on a pile of gold. Wake up." I took everything. I took the house. I took the money. I took the dignity. But most importantly, I took back my life. Rhett writes letters from prison. He asks about Lily. I send him photos. Just photos. No notes. No updates. He gets to see her grow up in 2 dimensions, frozen in time. That is his punishment. He is a spectator to the joy he tried to destroy. The other day, I found that old receipt from the riverside and tucked in a book I hadn't opened in years. I looked at it. It didn't make me angry anymore. It didn't make me cry. I walked to the fire pit in the backyard. I lit a match. I held the receipt to the flame and watched the paper curl and blacken, turning into ash. I watched the smoke rise up into the night sky, disappearing among the stars. "You lose," I whispered to the dark. Then I turned around, walked back into my warm, bright house, and locked the door.